Hi, Doc.
This one says, "Hi, Dave and Dr. Rand. I love the show. Learned a lot of new stuff, and it's great to hear from a doctor instead of some guys on the internet or at the gym.
Right?
I'm 32 and I've been diagnosed 6 years ago with psoriatic arthritis, and was feeling really weak. What I say? Psoriatic arthritis.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is not even close. Psoriatic arthritis, and I was feeling really weak and full of pain in the beginning. Going to the gym was simply not an option anymore because of the pain. Thanks to proper medication, methotrexate, 15 milligrams a week, and 3 times a week of 10 milligrams of peroxicam. That's an NSAID. I'm feeling great again, and I'm feeling good enough to train, which I've been doing for a while again. In the nearby future, I hope to do a bodybuilding show, which of course I have to take the necessary performance-enhancing drugs. Will it affect my joints in a negative way, and are there any type of PEDs that I definitely should avoid if so? I'm guessing a lot of people with any kind of arthritis out there might have the same question. Thank you very much for your time and hope to hear from you guys soon. Sincerely, I don't see a name. So, psoriatic arthritis is an autoimmune disorder where your body is just not, or I should say your immune system is not functioning the way it should. It's overreacting, if you will. It can cause all kinds of things, including psoriasis, plaques on the skin. And it can get in the joints and cause a lot of joint pain, which are the basics of what's going on here. There's other ways this expresses. I have to say that the dosage of medication, the methotrexate dose, the frequency and the dose itself, the strength of the dose is relatively mild for someone with this condition, and the peroxicam, to be able to use that relatively low a dose, meaning not have to use it 3 or 4 times a day, just use it 3 times a week, makes me believe this. It makes me optimistic. This is going to be fairly manageable, at least in the near future. I have found that both of myself, although I don't suffer from an autoimmune disorder, but even just osteoarthritis, you're much better off going through the pain of working out and the result of training, afterwards, from after the workout, than not training, which is a different kind of pain. If you don't mind, you've had a shoulder injury,
Yeah.
how much better it feels, not necessarily in the gym when you're pushing through it, but afterwards, as opposed to just, I can't train today. It was a different kind of pain, and I would argue, wouldn't you, that it's worse to just leave it be. So getting back at the gym and my point is much better. If you can get there, even if it's painful, it's probably better than staying out. So doing whatever you can to get back in the gym, good idea. To use performance enhancing drugs would not necessarily help or hurt the situation. I could come up with all kinds of rationales for and against that I won't bore you with, but I mean, you could tighten up the muscles too much, and does that help the pain or hurt the pain? I mean, you really go back to subjectivity here. Try it and find out. You could argue that you might have a more stable joint if you tighten up the muscles around it to a certain degree. To a certain degree more, you might have a stiff joint. It's not mobile enough, and it gets stiff because there's a lack of mobility. I mean, you can go back and forth on that. So I think that, certainly you could argue that decadurabolin in this case is not going to help the joints physiologically, but it might help reduce the pain a little bit to get him, back in the gym and moving and grooving in that regard. I would also consider some other things. The methotrexate is something that reduces the immune function. So that's good in someone with an autoimmune disorder, one that's overreacting. The peroxicam, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, those can be toxic over the long haul. Certainly to the kidneys, can take its toll on the GI tract. It leads to, I think it's the number one now. It overtook H. pylori as the number one cause of peptic ulcers in the United States, even duodenal ulcers. So, maybe use some curcumin, which is a derivative of turmeric, and it may not react immediately in an acute situation as well as peroxicam, but you could use that too, but only for those times where, okay, I need it to take effect as soon as possible. but after 6 weeks, maybe as short as 3 week span, I'm not going to remember exactly. Certainly 6 weeks. It's comparable to using chronic non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Proxicam, Advil, in other words, ibuprofen, things like that, Voltaren. Those are just more examples. But it'll do so without the side effects. As a matter of fact, the so-called side effects of using curcumin can actually be beneficial. It's a polyphenol that can actually help prevent pancreatic cancer. That's a plus, right?
Wow.
And you can reduce the inflammation. 1 gram twice a day is what most of the best studies have shown works. Mariva is a brand. I'm not promoting any brands, but that's the brand that was used in a fairly convincing study. There are others out there, and there are other brands, Life Extension Foundation, Designs for Health, that produce good, top quality supplements. And I'm not mentioning all the brands. I'm just making sure I'm not just mentioning one, because it's not about promoting a product. It's about promoting the ingredient. But you want it to be activated usually with, they have some nano particles that they are making with curcumin, but I think to combine it with something in the piperin family is the way that makes it most available. Anyway, 1 gram twice a day with Mariva showed comparable results to NSAID use. So of all this stuff, the PEDs, sure, you can try it. I don't think there'll be necessarily a negative effect, but I don't think there will necessarily be a positive effect. I think it could be relatively inconsequential or not. I think it's something it's not a non sequitur at all, but there's not going to be a direct effect on the joint. You could argue actually that with too much anabolic use, you could actually reduce your immune function. There are some studies that show that androgen receptor activation in an overabundance can lower your immune function. So, again, I don't mean to reach too much, but you could argue that might help. But again, I'm probably reaching too much. So again, my best advice out of all this is probably not what he was looking for, but look for ways to reduce inflammation that aren't going to come with the nasty side effects. There are other things out there like what's my favorite? Or one of my favorites starts with a B. What a time to have a brain cloud. Anyway, there are other natural substances out there that can help reduce inflammation that, even something like, and this wasn't the one I was thinking about, bromelain, that works in a different way than does curcumin, than does Proxicam to reduce inflammation. Inflammation is not a simple process like everyone thinks it is. It's not just one thing that causes it. There's different interleukins, different cytokines that can cause all kinds of issues. So I would look into other so-called natural sources of inflammation fighters, and then do what you can to get stronger in the gym. Why not?
There you go. Thanks, Doc.
Sure.